Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Dark Yellow here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about sensors. So, sensors itself, let's look at this one first. As you can hear, there's a beep. So, looking at the sensor, you see there's the interface and the warning light. So, what the warning light does is, let's make this as small as possible. So, you see, as soon as I'm outside of the range, it's green for it has power. It's on standby. If I say it's off, you can see it's red, unpowered. And if I change it, 5, 5, we'll talk about this in a few seconds. 5, you just heard it beep. You see now it is blue to mean, which means it is detecting something as I come forward, and it beeps, I'm in range. So we'll talk about the setup there in a few seconds. What I usually like to do is automate my doors. So let's talk about one thing to automate system doors, to have you not running around and turning off and turning on something the whole time, opening and closing doors. One thing I do want to go is without looking at the interface, for example, there or there. Okay, menu, info, I want to see sensor field range. So if I go to the sensor, you see it beeps now. That is up for the sensor, that is right for the sensor, that is left for the sensor, that's down, towards me is front, and behind the sensor is back. Now the door itself is one block up, so that is 1.75, 1.25 meters. The whole block is 5 meters. So, and 2.5, 1.25 to the side, 1.25 to the side. So I'm going to use that measurements to say left extent. Let's make it 2.5, a full block size. Right extent 2.5, full block size. Bottom. Now I don't really need it to be more than 1.1. So I'll show in a second why I don't need the bottom to be more than that. Top extent I want 5. I want it to go a little bit higher. Back extent, I wanted to go into the base a little bit. Front extent, I'm happy with 5. So what should it be doing? The beeping you hear is this proximity alert. So if you wanted to beep every time something comes in, you can leave it on. I wanted to detect players. I don't want it to detect small ships. I don't need it to detect large ships. Doesn't need to detect stations, subgrids, or asteroids. I wanted to see me and I wanted to see my faction members, but not neutral and not enemies. Because what I wanted to do is if we go to setup actions, door, external door. So this first slot is what do you do when something comes into sensor range and I wanted to open the door. When something leaves the sensor range, I wanted to close that door. Again, so basically why I don't want enemies to be detected, because if an enemy comes in, it will open the door for the enemy, which is not what we want. So as you saw, I had the back for 2.5, which should be about there. Door closes. Now, I want to keep it in mind that around about here, the door opens, door closes. Because when we open this door, I want this one just a little bit to the right. So let's start on the right. Right extent 2.5 also. Left extent that I can have as small as possible. Bottom extent, don't want it to go through the floor. Top extend, it can just be a little bit above the door. Back extend, I don't need it outside of the base, so I can have it as small as possible. Front, 5 is fine. Same thing again, I don't want to detect enemies and neutrals. I don't want it to open the doors, but I also don't need it to detect anything else like ships and small grids. Actions, let's look at door again. I have a internal door. Same thing if I go into range, open. If I leave range, closed. So let's see what happens. I go into range, door opens. It's depressurizing, so this is now an airlock. And oops, when I go out, it closes. When I approach the door, it closes, and then this one opens. And as soon as I go out of range, the door closes behind me. So you can have an automated system like this, for example, to run your airlocks for you. I quickly want to mention the vent system. Vents also have a detection system. So what I wanted to do is this warning light, when it starts vacuuming, I wanted to switch it on, and when it stops vacuuming, I wanted to switch off this light, which it should be doing, but it's not doing. I'll get back to that in a second. Alright, so we have a few sensors. So this first door is automated. There's a couple of lights around, I have a few speaker bars around, and there's a couple of other sensors. So what am I going to do next? This sensor, I'm going to say, is detect enemies. I'm going to max it out. This, I want to detect them even if they are anywhere around, in, or on the base. Proximity alerts, detect players, and yeah, it can also detect ships. Because as it happens, if a player is seated, he's not detected. If a player is outside a seat, he gets detected. So I wanted to detect all those things and a subgroup. For now, I'm going to say owner and friendlies off. I want neutrals and enemy detected. And before I go to actions, let's do this. So I have set up 2 timers. Base off, base on. Sorry. Not that I wanted. Sorry. Slightly got distracted. Alright, so this sensor was, let's say, enemy. Just want to make sure. Yeah, we can say this one enemy. And actions I wanted to do is play a sound block. If it detects the enemy, it plays. So unfortunately at the moment I don't have an enemy. So let's do the following. This is just going to tell it to detect me. So sensor enemy. If you detect the enemy, play this sound block, and for now I'm gonna be the enemy.
Enemy detected.
So when it detects the enemy, as you heard, it's gonna play that sound block. The clip it's gonna play is sound block, warning.
Warning, enemy detected.
And on the sound block also you can change the range of how far people can hear it, how far away from that sound block. Next thing I want to do is I have an on and off, for example.
Lights on.
Lights on.
Lights off.
Lights off. Alright, so I'm going to set up a sensor to do that for me, but because it is a couple of things I wanted to do. So there's a few lights around, there's this display, and I want to save energy a little bit. So what I wanted to do is So let's say timer switching off everything and a timer switching on everything. Let's make this to 1 1. So before I go into that, I want to add lights into a group. Interior lights. And I think there's only one LCD, so only one LCD, but there are 2 vents. So this one is not depressurizing, so that's internal. And then I can go to my timers. Timer on. When it detects someone, I want it to... Timer on, yes, sorry. Timer on, groups. Somebody's in the base, switch on the lights. I wanted to switch on the LCD. And I wanted to switch off that vent because nobody's inside, so I don't need the vent to be on, say for example. And then off, we just do the opposite. We want all the lights to switch off. Switch off, and we want our LCD to switch off. And why not the vent? I want the vent to switch off. Let me double check if yeah, this is off. Let me just double check on. No, the vent should be on. Toggle block on. Interior lights, groups, toggle block on. So, as we can see, everything is on in the base. Everything is still on in the base. But if I do the following, G, I want a desk. And let me set up this one. Now this one I very specifically want it to only measure the interior space. So that is 2.5, 10 meters up. So top is going to be 10. Right is going to be 152. Let's say the right is 7 meters. Left 5, 10, let's make it 11 to be sure. Left is 11. Top extent we did do. Front is going to be just this one block of 2.5. Front 2.5. Bottom extent we can also make 2.5. We can make bottom extent, which is this little bit, and 5 meters, 7.5. Let's make it 9, just to make sure we're catching. Bottom extent. And I wanted to detect pretty much everybody. We can detect all players. Even the enemies, because I wanted to switch on and off. Actions. So if somebody comes into range of the sensor, we want everything to switch on, and we want everything to switch off when people leave it. Sorry, start. Alright, so what I wanted to show was, hey, base switches off. There's one thing I didn't do. Timer, block off, set up actions, sound block, play. And then on the on one, set up actions, sound block,
Lights on.
so we see lights on,
Lights off.
we see lights off,
Lights on.
same here.
Lights off.
So when a player goes into cryo seated, as far as the game is concerned, the player disappeared. So a sensor is concerned. So the sensor will say, okay, this guy is not here anymore. So that's internals you can play around with a little bit with. Detect enemy, we have one sound block to detect enemy, we have one sensor to detect players. So as I'm leaving my base here,
Lights off.
it switches the lights off, and the doors itself will open and close for me as I come and go. Okay, so we also have this internal door. So this one I have named garage, and this sensor is our garage sensor. Set up actions, garage. If I approach, open the door. If I leave, close the door. And same thing again, left, let's say 2, right, let's say 2, bottom 5, top extent can be as small as possible because it's just above the door, back extent, let's say 2.5, front extent, I'm happy with 5. Same thing again, don't open for the enemies, and I also don't want to open it for ships coming in. And we have this door opening. So as you see inside, I have my little ship, I have a garage door. So one thing that you can do is get into your little welder, go to your groups and say garage gate open, wait for it to open and fly out. But of course, there is a way you can do this with sensors. So as you can see, we have it on the, as far as the sensor is concerned, on the left of the door. So anything this way is of course going to be its right, this way is going to be its left, down and up. The door itself is of course a 2.5 meters block, and we have our welder just within that range. So I'm not going to go too far in, I can go a lot out. I need 5 and 10 meters to the right. No, I don't need anything for the left. I need block up, block down for the sensor. So let's set that up. So left extend, I don't need a lot, can be as small as possible. Right extend, I want that 10 meters. We can play it safe and say 11. Bottom extend, I need 5 meters, top 5 meters, top extend 5, back extend. So that is just one block in. Let's try 3 meters, because that's going to be 2.5 and then a meter. Front extend, I'm happy with 5. This one, it can open with players. It can detect small ships. Large ships is not going to fit in that hangar, so we're going to skip that one. Again, I don't want enemies and neutrals to be opening my doors. The action I wanted to do, this time, I'm going to use the group for the garage door. If it detects it, open. If it leaves that space, close. Come on, close. There we go. So leave it, the door closes. As I come in, the door opens. And you can also, for example, very specifically set this Don't detect players. So now I'm coming in, nothing is happening. I have to use the garage door. I go in the garage door, get in my little spaceship, undock, move forward, door opens. Ooh. That was not cool. To prevent something like that, give me a second, just want to clean up a bit. One second. Sorry. Okay, interface, safe zone. Should be no damage. Probably I need zone chips. Hey, so 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. That one was Zippy, my quick little welder. That's the same thing again. Hopefully I'm not going to crash her this time. When I'm in range, the door is going to open for me, and it's going to be tricky now for the second because I didn't attach a camera to this. Give me a sec. Because of the arrangement, I'm going to need a camera just to make sure I can park this ship. Gee, I want the camera. Let's say view. Might as well put sensors in here to illuminate the environment. Because as soon as I'm gonna be far enough away from that door, it's gonna close. Okay, so as you can see, I set it up. This one is not triggering on player, it's just gonna trigger on ship. So I've got a little dock for my welding ship. Let's go outside. And then one more thing I have got here is, as you can see at the moment, I don't have another door. So this one, I'm going to say I want to the right as much as possible. I want to the left and right as much as possible. Bottom as much as possible. Top extent as much as, 50. Back extent, not really going to worry about it. It's into the base. Front extent, I want 50. This one, I do want to detect players, floating objects, small ships, large ships. We are a station itself, so we're not really going to have stations visiting us. Can detect subgroups. Not worried about the owner and friendly. What I want this one to do, that is 50 meters. Battery. I want a battery. Something powered. And just give myself the slightest of forward speeds. And transfer to Space Pirates. Transfer. Oh, I forgot about those ones. One second. I don't want these guns to shoot for now. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Turrets. You guys can chill for a second. This block is dead. Do you want to get some speed on this? Let me do this then. G, iron, ever so slightly gonna override. Actually gonna have to take back the battery. Sorry. Sorry for being quiet. I said the transfer. One second, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to. Oops. Shoot! Shoot to kill! Shoot to kill! I might just have to change that to make it a little bit easier for me. Let me just double check the settings. It's supposed to detect ships and enemies. Let's just make sure. Set up actions. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's probably why. I want the timer. Start, and if we leave the range again, and let me just make sure, don't detect players, don't detect floating object, yeah, protect enemies, detect everything. So just to make it a tad easier. I set up actions. I want you to start the gun timer. Start. And then when something leaves it, it can trigger. You can go to the Space Pirates again. And of course it left. Well, basically what you can see, if I have a timer trigger now, just want this to go in again. Just want to make sure something. Just give me a second. Friendlies, yes, yes. Transfer to enemies. So now I did it right. So as soon as something flies into range of my antenna sensor, it is going to trigger this sensor, and the block is still there. When the block leaves, it should retract it. So just a simple example, what I have done here is I have a Gatling turret on a hinge. Okay, so things to note, there is a min and max on your sensors. You can play a little bit around with things. For example, I could have put this on a piston to get a higher speed velocity out of it, because the doors itself, I'll show you another one. I'll show you little tricks that you can do with your sensors. I'll also do detectors next time around, the next video on sensors. I'm going to do 2 videos on sensors. The little warning sensors, things like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, a few basic things that you can do with sensors, little few things that you can do to make life easier for yourself, so that you don't have to turn around every time to open and close doors. You can also have your base powered down a little bit in case you need to conserve power. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I hope you have enjoyed it. Have a wonderful day. Watch out for the next video. I'll do a few more tricks about sensors. Have a wonderful time.